Hey confirmation students, hope that you guys are doing well. I am recording this on an absolutely beautiful day. It's like 65 degrees, and so I hope that you guys are enjoying your day. And I'm just going to do a quick lesson on worship and service. I actually made this video several days ago, but then just my phone didn't work out. I actually ended up falling in a river, which my wife thinks is pretty funny. And my phone fell in the river. And I recorded the video and the audio didn't work. So anyways, this is my second try at a confirmation video for you guys. Next Sunday is Easter Sunday. I hope that you guys have an awesome Easter with your family, and obviously you guys are going to be home. But I'll post a video later on in this week. It won't be for confirmation. It'll be kind of like a middle school, high school confirmation, everything all wrapped up into one video Easter posting. So I will post that later on this week. And so this next Sunday you have confirmation off. We'll have no youth group virtually, digitally. And then the following week on the 19th, that Sunday, I will start posting more videos. And just to let you guys know, right now we are also looking at least through the month of April of not having confirmation or youth group. So it's still going to be at least a couple more weeks and possibly longer. So let's jump into worship. Why don't you guys open up your books? You should have your confirmation books. Page 41, you will find this lesson. So worship and service. You might be wondering why we're doing worship and service together. I want you guys to think of worship and service as, think of it almost like breathing. When you breathe, you need to inhale. You also need to exhale. Both are really important. The inhaling you could think of as worshiping, which is like taking in nutrients, taking in what you need. And you know, when you breathe in, you're taking in all of these different elements from the air, and then your body is using the oxygen and the nitrogen and all the other trace elements, and then it is exhaling a lot of carbon dioxide, so it's transforming into something different. And the cool thing is, I'm looking up here at some of the trees that I have here in my yard. The cool thing is that the plants around us actually need that carbon dioxide. So we take in something, our body transforms it into something that the world can use. And I want you guys to think of worship and service as that. So when you worship God, you are inhaling, you're taking in what you need. And then the exhaling is when you go out in service and serve others. It's what the world needs, okay? So if you guys think of it like that, like breathing, taking in by worshiping God, and then giving out, breathing out by acts of service. Those are like two things that go together. And a lot of times with acts of service, we think of things like going on a mission trip, or we think of doing like a highway cleanup or other things like that. I just want to encourage you guys that acts of service can actually be a lot simpler than that too. It can be big things, but it can also be simple things as well. So let's take a look at page 41. Page 41 has this paragraph on the upper left-hand corner. I'll just read it for you guys. It says, "Sometimes it seems like the church is out of touch with the rest of the world. There's confusing theology, the songs sound nothing like what's popular, and you have to dress up. Luckily, church only happens once a week," right? So oftentimes we think of church, we think of it as a building. We think of it as a place we go on a Sunday, and when we go to church, we go to a worship service. So we kind of connect all those dots, and so we have, we worship at church. Church is in a building. We go to church once a week. You have to dress up. You have to try not to fall asleep. There's all these different ways that we think about church, and it's very different from our existence in the world or at school or in our normal day-to-day life. But actually, worship can happen at any time of the week, or any time of the day. Some of my favorite times to worship are at nighttime. I'll go on walks sometimes, and I find that I've always been able to worship God when I go out on walks, because my mind just starts to consider everything that I'm seeing. Usually the beautiful moon, the trees. Something about nighttime really makes a lot of those things come to life for me. Also for me, I'll worship God in the woods a lot. I find myself worshiping God when I'm in the woods. And so those are kind of a couple places for me where I find myself worshiping God. So I want to encourage you guys, worship can take place anywhere, but it does primarily also take place in a congregation of people. There's something different that happens when we're with a group of people, and all of us are singing our praise to God. Now I want you guys to think for a second. There's this question that a lot of people have asked, and I'll ask it to you guys. Who do you guys think is changed by worship? My kids are singing right now, so. Who do you guys think is changed by worship? Is it God who is changed? Think about it. If you worship God not at all, or if you worship God for 24 hours straight, does it change anything about God? When you think about it, worship doesn't change God at all, does it? Worship actually changes me and you. It changes humans. It changes people. And so you don't worship so that you'll end up being a changed person. You worship because you love God, or you'd like to learn to love God. And the result is that you're changed. It's really cool. So there's a lot of times some of us might not feel a hunger for worship. And a great place to start is just to be honest in front of God and tell him that you don't feel like worshiping him. I don't feel like worshiping you, God. Because that happens a lot. A lot of us don't feel like worshiping God. But when we do worship God, we find that we are transformed as people. And the reason why that is, it's a really simple idea, but the biblical writers have been writing about this all throughout the Bible. They talk about something called idolatry, which is not having to do with like bowing down to a statue or an idol so much as it has to do with putting things first in your life and in your heart. So idolatry in the biblical times is really talking about priorities. You can think of it as priorities, okay? So what is your number one priority? If you don't know what your number one priority is, there's a better way of asking it. What is the thing that takes up the most amount of time in your life? What do you spend the most time thinking about, or the most time doing, or the most time watching, or the most time listening to? What are your priorities in life? You see, we tend to put a lot of time and energy into things that we really love, and we don't put a lot of time and energy into things that we don't love. So for a lot of us, we don't want to put that much time and energy into school, maybe, because maybe school is just annoying or whatever. We put more time and energy into other things. Well, the Bible would say that whatever we spend our most time doing and thinking about, we will actually end up worshiping those things. That's like a form of worship. It's because what are you giving? Worshiping is like giving something, giving a piece of yourself to something. That's worship. And so when you give your time, let me tell you, your time is the most valuable possession that you have. It is so valuable. Your time is so valuable. And as you continue to get older, you will realize more and more just how valuable your time is. So think about what you spend the most amount of your time on. That's, in a sense, you are offering yourself, your time, the one of the most deepest parts of yourself. You're really, in a way, you're worshiping it. And so when the Bible uses that kind of language about idolatry, don't have any idols, what it's saying is, listen, are you giving yourself to a person in a relationship more than God? Are you giving yourself to food more than God? Are you giving yourself to money more than God? Are you, in a sense, are you worshiping these other things, or are you worshiping God? And the Bible really puts at a core, you don't just randomly do good or bad things. You do the things that you worship. Whatever you worship, you're going to end up repeating that again and again. You're going to end up following whatever the thing is that you worship. So if you worship food, you're going to find yourself eating a lot. Maybe you worship bad food, right? You find yourself eating junk food all the time. Some people worship good food. They think it's going to solve all the problems in their life, right? And eating good is a really good thing. So you can worship good things. You can worship bad things, right? But it's all worship. It's all giving of your time and energy. So here's the question then. Why would you want to worship God? It's not if you're going to worship something. All of us are worshiping things all the time. You're worshiping things all the time. I'm worshiping things all the time. Why would I want to choose to worship God? Which is to show that the thing that I'm worshiping has worth. That's really what worship is. It's like worth, W-O-R-T-H, worthship. You're showing that this thing has worth. Why would I want to say, God, you have worth? Well, the reason why is because God is the one who created you in the beginning. He's the one who knows how you're wired up. He's the one who knows how life ought to be lived. He's the one who's shown you everything you need to live the kind of life that you would want to live the best kind of life. When you worship him, you get all of that stuff, right? No matter what you worship, when you worship it, you get something from it. So when you worship food, you might get a big belly, right? If you worship fitness, your fitness and that routine, you might get, a sculpted body. If you worship a relationship, you're going to get affirmation from a person. You're going to get all these different things. You're getting something from the things that you worship. So why would you want to worship God? Well, because you get peace and hope and love. You get all these things. So when we worship God, that's why you would want to come on a Sunday morning in the congregation, because when you worship with other people, you actually end up getting something you can't get anywhere else. You can't get it just by sitting at home, which is part of really, the problem we have right now when we're sitting at home in quarantine. We can't get worship packaged to us like that. I mean, we can try, and we have to do it right now, but that's not the primary way, right? That's just a part of it. So we have to worship together. Let's flip our pages. Let's go to page 42 and 43. And this question, why worship, it comes up on this page, which I've already been talking about, right? I'm going to read the red paragraph on the upper left-hand corner. It says, everything we encounter in our lives, good and bad, comes with us when we worship. Worship is where we get refueled to live lives of love, compassion, and service to God and others. All of that loving and serving pulls us back into worship with an eagerness to fill up on the kind of fuel only God can give us. So it's that same idea that I've been talking about. It's like we go and we worship God so that we can go out into the world. It's like getting fueled up. All right, it's like going to the gas station and getting your gas tank filled up. Then you can go out in the world and you can do a whole bunch of different other things. But if you're not coming back again and again to worship and get refueled, right, you're going to run out of gas. You're going to run out of the thing that you actually need. So let's just look at some of these circles here that are on this page. And just in case you're wondering exactly what page, I'm looking at this page. So with worship, we're in the presence of God, right? John Wesley believed that gathering together in communities of faith to pray, hear the word of God, and take part in communion as a means of grace. One of the ways God is present and active in our lives. We got some crying kids, sorry about that. It's also who we are. Look down a little bit. Worship is where we're reminded of our common identity as God's people. Outside of church, we slip into the idea that we are defined by how smart we are, or how cute we are, or how cool our friends are. But worship pulls us back from all that noise and shows us who we really are. Okay, you need to be reminded of who you really are. That's what you find in worship. You can see that you're equipped to serve as the next one. Worship is a launch pad. It's a fueling station, a food truck handing out protein shakes. That's kind of a funny way to say it. But it says, choose whatever metaphor you like, but keep this in mind. We worship to fill ourselves up so we can go back out the door to love and serve others. Another circle on the right-hand page, it says, it reminds us of our need for God. When we love and serve others, we find ourselves more aware of just how much we need God. As individuals and a global community, God fills us with compassion so we can see the needs of others. It's huge, guys. It's huge. Our need for God, and then we get to see the needs of others. And then we also find our gifts and passions when we worship is another circle. And this is really important because a lot of you, and I'll just tell you the story for me. When I was in middle and high school, I learned to take my gift of music and start to really use it in worship services. And some of you guys, there are opportunities for you guys, whether it's speaking or whether it's music or whether it's even being an usher, serving people within the worship community, the worship service. One other note, and then we're going to be done, is just on worship styles. So you'll see a little circle there about worship styles. There are tons of different churches. Some of you guys have never been in another denomination, but I would encourage you guys, if you can, to go to other churches and check out what their worship styles are like. You'll find that some of them are a lot more traditional than us, a lot more traditional. If you think our church has kind of like old hymns or old songs, there's churches with even older hymns and songs. Some churches are in different languages, right? The Eastern Orthodox Church has a lot of their churches that the service is actually in a different language. Then you'll go to other contemporary churches, there's a lot more of those around, and you'll find that it's much more almost like a rock concert. But the whole point with all of the different musical styles, and worship is more than just music, but there's different musical styles, is that none of them are better than the other. My personal opinion is that you have to have a good blend, and you have to have songs that point you back to God. So there's a lot of churches where you can go and sing songs that are a lot about me, a lot about ourselves, and in reality, the songs that we sing to God should be praising Him, right? And so that's an important thing. But worship also takes place outside of the music. It takes place in what we call the liturgy as well. And the liturgy is kind of just the pattern that we use in our worship service. So you guys will notice in our worship services, pay attention to the liturgy next time you're in church. We have a call to worship. We have different prayers. We have different scripture readings. We have a sermon. We have a benediction. We have announcements. This is all a part of the liturgy. So there are just different styles with all that. There's a lot more to say on worship, you guys. And I'm trying to keep this video kind of short. A normal confirmation lesson would be 45 minutes long. I'm trying to keep this somewhere between 15 and 20. So there's a lot more to say about worship, but what you guys need to do now is you need to log in and just ask a question, write about 5 sentences, either in a summary form or asking questions with your summary, or just engaging in some way to show me that you've been listening and taking in the content here. So hope that you guys have a good day, and I will hopefully get to see you all real soon. Bye.